Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us, coming to you from Washington's premier indoor shooting facility. Of course, that's Security Gun Club right here in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, I love it when I can start a video with a hypothetical. So here's our what if moment today. What if you had the absolute constitutional right to go out and exercise whatever religion you want, whenever you want, but it was limited to one Sunday per month? What happens if you absolutely positively had a constitutional right to go out and speak freely, but that was only limited to 2 weekends a month? What happens if you had a First Amendment right to privacy, but you could only exercise that right on days that were multiples of 7? Sounds pretty ridiculous. And in fact, it sounds ridiculous because, well, that's not the way constitutional rights work. But in the state of Washington, that is exactly how they want them to work. Don't believe me? I'm going to introduce you to a new bill today that is absolutely one of the most atrocious pieces of unconstitutional crap to come along in this state in a long time, and that is saying something. So today, let's slow it down for a few minutes and let's talk about the quota that Washington State wants to set on your constitutional rights. Okay, listen, coming to you from Washington's premier indoor shooting facility, that's Security Gun Club, had a Julie Barrett sighting here yesterday. Check that out. And it's a good segue to talk about who is sponsoring today's video, because the video today is being sponsored by the Conservative Ladies of Washington. Hey, you want to really get up to speed and get a lot of questions answered about what's coming through the legislative pipeline this year from Olympia? Well, then join the Conservative Ladies of Washington and Washington Gun Law live on Facebook, but the best way to do it is to sign up for the Zoom conference. We're going to put the links down below in the description box. That's going to take place January 4th at 6:30 p.m. That's 6:30 Pacific time. So listen, you guys are going to have a lot of questions about what's coming down, what's going to happen, and what can we do to stop the insanity. So please join Julie and myself January 4th, 6:30 on Zoom or Facebook Live. Links are down below in the description box. Okay, Washington, we are now going to talk about House Bill 2054. Oh, I've never heard of House Bill 2054. Well, yeah, it's brand new, but as I have said on some videos, you might want to either do some breathing exercises, maybe 3 fingers of bourbon before you watch this video, or perhaps grab a barf bag. The hypothetical that I used to start this video, which is, can you imagine if you had these supposed inalienable rights, but you could only exercise them on certain days of the week or only a certain number of times per month? Well, that's exactly what House Bill 2054 does. Now, it is being sponsored by 2 representatives, and they are Daria Farivar from North Seattle and Tim Ormsby from Spokane. And Mr. Ormsby, I think the fact that a Spokane state legislator would actually sponsor a bill like that speaks volumes for what's happened to the once great town of Spokane. Okay, what does this bill do? Well, it's real simple. It limits your Second Amendment rights to accumulate or possess or take possession of a new firearm to once a month. Let me say that again. This bill, if enacted into legislation, will limit your ability to purchase firearms to 1 firearm per month. Don't believe me? This is exactly how this very short 2-page bill reads. New section, Section 1. A new section is added to Chapter 941 RCW to read as follows. 1. A dealer may not deliver more than 1 firearm to a purchaser or transferee within any 30-day period. And then there is a Section 2 to the statute, which lists all of the exceptions, all the people who are exempted from the statute, and they're the usual suspects: the military, law enforcement, federal agents, Department of Fish and Wildlife, law enforcement, military background. For all of us average citizens, just the lawful and responsible gun-owning Washington residents, there is no exception to this statute whatsoever. You will only be allowed to exercise your Second Amendment right once a month, because these 2 state representatives, well, they know what's best for all of us. Now, in a normal state, one would just roll their eyes and say, well, this will never see the light of day, probably not even get a committee hearing. But mark my words, this bill will be very feverishly pushed. The numbers are there to pass it. And there is a high probability, if there is any legislative effort from those on the left supporting civilian disarmament here in Washington state, that in fact this will become a reality. Now you couple that with House Bill 1178, which was the complete eradication of the state preemption law. That's still kicking around. And then add to that House Bill 1902, Liz Berry's new spectacular piece of legislation, which takes everything that was properly removed from 1143 last year and just plugs it back in against this year. Folks, we are not even to the legislative session. There are already pre-filed bills plus some other bills that are kicking around. If you thought that you got enough blood let out of you last year, I got news for you. They are nowhere close to being done with this. Listen, that bill again is House Bill 2054. We will link it up down below so that you can geek out on it for yourself. We will also link up both of the contact pages to the bill's sponsors, so if you want to reach out to them in a polite and professional way, you may do so. If you got any other questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington Gun Law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is also down there in the description box. In the meantime, let's everyone remember that part of being a lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.